Well, you can barely see
Is that
him.
those all your yearbooks?
Recording?
Yeah.
All right.
Dude, I don't even know where mine is.
Hello, I'm Collin Murray. I know most of us have experienced restrictions or rules in life, whether it be by your parents or by your boss or by the law. There was a time when people were by law born with no human rights, grew up not knowing who their parents were. This was a time when slavery existed in the United States. I know I've struggled and continue to struggle with what is compared to back then as measly restrictions and rules. Yet most of us still manage to make it through life productively and to be happy. It would be close to impossible to try and survive such hardships that slaves went through, much less become productive or happy, but Frederick Douglass did. We know from history courses that Douglass is one of the most famous slaves throughout American history, but not many of us know the true hardships he overcame that earned his much-deserved historic fame. I will be highlighting some of the main things in Douglass's life that he overcame and drove him to do such great things. Douglass was born into slavery and motherless, but he managed to teach himself to read and write. With his knowledge, he was able to free himself and fight for equal rights for all. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery February 1818 at Home Hill Farm on the eastern shore of Maryland. If having no control of his life's destiny wasn't bad enough, he had to do so with no mother. His mother's name was Harriet Bailey, and like many cases back then, his father was rumored to be his white master, Aaron Anthony. It was common practice in Maryland that slaves were taken from their mothers just before their first birthday. His mother was moved to a plantation 12 miles away and was only able to see him a handful of times. She would come see him at night after a day's work, traveling the whole way by foot. When Douglass was 7, his mother passed, and he was not allowed to see her when she was sick or say goodbye when she died or be present at her burial. Douglass was so unfamiliar with his mother that when he got word of her death, he acted as if he had gotten word that a stranger had died. After his mother's passing, then a few weeks later, his first master, Anthony, died. Douglass became property of Thomas Aud and was sent to live with Thomas's brother Hugh Aud and his wife Sophia in Baltimore. There, Douglass began his incredible self-education. Miss Aud was only able to teach Douglass his ABCs before her husband reprimanded her actions and forbade any more education of Douglass. Mr. Aud made the mistake of explaining his reasoning as to why he thought slaves should never be educated, which only inspired Douglass to continue to try and learn. From that point on, Douglass figured out that knowledge was his pathway away from slavery. He was able to trick the neighborhood kids with bread to play games that would challenge their reading and writing skills, and which he would learn from. Once he learned how to read, he would read as much as possible, always trying to perfect his reading ability. After his 12th birthday, he came up with a brilliant idea to teach himself to write. He stole sheets of Master Thomas's copybook and would copy what he had written over and over again. This took him the longest time to accomplish. After years of practice, he was able to write just like his master. After being able to read and write, he was never satisfied and always tried to perfect his reading and writing ability. He held onto the idea that knowledge would be able to free himself from slavery, and by being able to read and write, he was able to do just that. With the help of a free black slave, Anna Murray, who he would become engaged and married to, he was able to develop a plan of escape. He borrowed papers from a free black sailor, and with that disguise of being a free sailor, he boarded a train to New York. After getting to New York, he and his wife moved to Massachusetts. There he began his lifelong activism in the abolishment of slavery. He subscribed to William Lloyd Garrison's Liberator and gave his first anti-slavery speech. After giving his speech, he was hired as a speaker in Garrison's Anti-Slavery Society. During this time, he began working on his narrative. Douglass continued by publishing additional autobiographies that told stories of his terrible treatment throughout his childhood. He also spent a great time in politics and striving for the passing of the 15th Amendment after the Civil War. Women's rights were every bit as important to Douglass as slavery was, and he attended the first Women's Rights Convention in New York. He continued to attend women's rights convention and lecture in favor of women's rights. It would have been well-deserved for Douglass to go on with his life, raising a family and enjoying his freedom. Rarely did a born slave even come close to overcoming the feats that Douglass did. He witnessed and lived through many things that today are considered to be unthinkable, and Douglas was very aware of this, and that's why he tried to make the most of his situation. Though he was criticized, he was never satisfied and always strived to better himself and the rights of others, with a lifelong commitment to his vision of a world without racial differences. It would be difficult to exaggerate the importance of American rights in Douglas's exceptional career as a champion of human rights. Thank you all very much. Do it.